Hi, so in this video we're going to look at the recap and objectives for the turn in the road. Let's imagine you're at the test centre. So the examiner is in the driver's seat, you're in the passenger seat, and you've just been given the word picture. So you would do your introduction and then you would be into a recap. Now the thing with the manoeuvres is that you've got to drive to the site before you do the briefing on the manoeuvre itself. So what I would suggest is that you do two separate recaps and objectives. One for the drive to the site, and then when you get to the site you can recap again on aspects of manoeuvring, and you can set an objective for the manoeuvre. So look at it as two separate little lessons in a sense. So there's like a mini lesson of the drive to the site, and then the major part of the lesson, which is the turn in the road exercise. So from the test centre I would not really go into detail about the turn in the road very much, but just say that today you are going to teach the turn in the road, but before that we need to get to the site, so you need to find out a little bit about what they've done before, just so that you've got an idea of how to pitch your level of instruction and what the pupil may have done or may not have done. So I would first of all just ask an obvious question: what have you done so far in your lessons? And then they'll paint a bit of a picture. They'll probably say, I've done junctions mainly. So obviously you're going to be driving through junctions on the way to the site, so the recap question to ask there is about MSPSL. So finding out if they know the MSPSL routine and making sure that they feel happy with that, and if they've got any problems that you might be able to help them with. So you could say, for example, okay, so if you come into a junction, what routine would you use? Hopefully they'll say MSPSL. That's only 5 letters, so you need to find out, do you know what it means? But rather than saying do you know what it means, because that'll get a yes or no answer, you would say, what does that mean? What does it stand for? Hopefully they give you the right answer to that. That sounds great. And then you could say, well, good, because we're going to use that on the way to the site. Is there anything that you feel you need a lot of help with still? And then that will give them an opportunity to say, well, I don't really feel too good with emerging, or whatever it might be. If there isn't anything, which normally there wouldn't be, because they're not going to mess around too much on the drive to the site, they'll say, no, I feel okay with most of it. And then all you need to do then is prompt on the way, so that you're not just leaving it entirely up to them, but you're still there in front of the pupil and giving positive and proactive instruction. So there's a mini recap at the beginning. You would then follow that up with your objective, and the objective would be to reach the site of the manoeuvre. So you would say, okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to drive to the site, and when we get to that site I'm going to brief you on the turn in the road. Don't worry, because on the way I'm going to give you as much help as you need. So there's just a little bit of a mini objective, not really saying what you're going to do in detail about the turn in the road just yet, because that can come later on. And if you spend too much time in the car park talking about that, then you're wasting time, and they will have forgotten all that by the time you get to the site anyway. So keep it short, keep it brief and specific to what they've covered before, and the MSPSL routine in particular. Okay, so you've reached the site of the manoeuvre. So this is where you would give a bit of feedback on the drive that you've had to the site, which should be quite positive if you've been in front and been proactive with your instruction. Everything should have gone quite well. So don't spend too long on that, and then move on to the recap and the objective for the manoeuvre itself. So think about the skills that are needed in this manoeuvre: car control, observations, accuracy, and think of ways that you could link things that they've done in the past, things that they already know about, into this manoeuvre, and that's your recap. So you could recap on things like clutch control, brake control, observations, and accuracy. Let's deal with the clutch control first. So you would want to find out if they knew what clutch control was and how to use it correctly. So you might ask a question like, have you used clutch control before? Do you know what clutch control is? That could get a yes or no answer, but sometimes that is a starting point, because if they say, no, I don't know what it is, then you know that you've got to start from scratch. But usually they'll have used it somehow. So if they say, yes, I've used it, then that doesn't tell you an awful lot. It just tells you that they think they've used clutch control. It doesn't tell you if they know how to use it correctly. So I would set up another question that will investigate their knowledge of it and their understanding of it. So you could say, for example, if you're using clutch control and you feel the car going a bit too fast, what would you do to slow the car down? Now the answer you're looking for is dip the clutch, but a lot of the time they'll say off the gas or gently brake. So if you're getting a wrong answer, that's part of your fault identification, analysis and correction process. So it gives you a chance to hear that wrong answer, jump on it, fix it, and then you can move on, so that they've got the correct understanding of what clutch control is and how to use it. It might be an idea just to do a little bit of that, get them to do a little bit of clutch control if you're not 100% happy that they do understand it. So you could set that up as part of the exercise for the practical part. But at the moment we're talking about the recap. So we'd recap on the clutch control, brake control. You could ask about that. You could ask about how they would use brake control and see if they can give you a correct answer to that. If it doesn't sound right, again, you can fix it. So we've done the control, then the observations. If you're finding out have they done any reversing before, which is a really good question to ask, because you should never assume that they've done reversing, then if they said yes, I've done reversing, then you know you can ask a few questions about observations for reversing. So you could say, before you start reversing, where should you look? The answer should be all round. And then as you're reversing, where should you be looking? Mostly, and that should be through the back window. So if you think of the answer that you're looking for, then invent a question that's going to get that answer. If you get the answer you're looking for, you'll recognise it. If you don't get the answer you want, you'll recognise that as well. But usually, if you've set the question up correctly and the pupil does know the answer, they'll give you the answer correctly, and that gives you a chance to give a lot of positive feedback again. So it all moves along really nicely. So you'll establish the pre-knowledge with things like the control, the observations. Accuracy you can bring in a little bit, because if you think about turning the road, as you go forwards and you're going to reach the curb on the right hand side, they need to judge how close they are to that curb. So if they've done T-junctions, they should have had a way of judging when they're close to the give-way lines, with the give-way line looking like it's just underneath the wing mirror or the door mirror. So if you ask them about that and see if they have got that knowledge, then that'll tie in with the new subject. Admittedly, it'll be in a slightly different place, but it's a similar thing. So once you've established the pre-knowledge in your recap and you've got the answers you were looking for, then you can move on to set your objective. And to do the objective, I would make a link from the recap again into the objective. So you might say, well, it's really good that you remembered how you're going to use clutch control and you've remembered about your observations and judging your accuracy at the T-junction there, because today we're going to use those skills in the turning the road. So first of all, I'm going to explain it all to you and show you a diagram so that you can see it in theory, and then you're going to practice it, but I'll give you plenty of help to begin with, and by the end of the lesson you'll be doing the turning the road with less help from me. So again, you've set up the objective by saying what you're going to teach, how you're going to teach it, EDP, and by the end what they should have achieved. The manoeuvre is one of those things that you might offer a demonstration for, and in a real situation with a real pupil that could be quite useful, but in a test situation, because of time constraints, the examiner will refuse it and say no, I'll just have a go. But it's a good idea if you want to offer a demonstration, because they'll think, well, if I was a real pupil that would have been a good plan and I might have learned more from a demonstration than a briefing anyway. So do offer demonstrations if you feel it's relevant. So hopefully that's given you a better insight into how to deal with the turning the road recap and objectives, and I'll be doing a practical video on how to actually do the turning the road from the pupil and the instructor's perspective in the car. So look out for that one. See you soon.